In this update, we've got a series of cold fronts that's going to bring a round of showers and thunderstorms, and then much cooler air back behind it, and then something tropical may be trying to form as we head towards Memorial Weekend. So let's break down the details in this update and start off with the overall satellite picture. And you can actually see here is the first cold front that's stalled more or less down here in portions of the southeast. To the south of there, that's where they have some instability and the active rain showers. But back behind it, man, we got some much cooler and chillier air in the northeast this morning. And then we have another lift mechanism coming in out of portions of the southwest. That's that southwest flow. We got a steady stream of moisture returning back into towards the southern plains while we're waiting for our next cold front that's going to be diving southbound. And that is the trigger mechanism to produce rounds of showers and thunderstorms. You can see the blob of energy that's popped up over Oklahoma, and then we'll have more rounds today and even a stronger batch as we head towards into the daytime tomorrow. So let's take a look at some of those temperatures this morning. Those are freezing temperatures, folks, and some of these are record lows up here into the northeast this morning. Much cooler air. You can see where the cold fronts are, right? They stick out like a sore thumb with the blue shaded on the map. But out ahead of in the middle of the country, that's that tropical, that's that feed that's coming in off the southwest flow. That's the instability, and these temperatures are going to be rising ahead of this next cold front. So that's where the most unstable air is going to be, right to the south of where the cold fronts are going to be lying. So here's the setup for today. So here's that initial cold front that's dropped in from the northeast. You got high pressure back behind it. And then we have another low pressure that's setting up across portions of Florida, back in through South Carolina, back towards the Savannah area. Could get very heavy rain right along the coastal regions. But there's also another boundary dropping out here in portions just south of Denver, going to be stalled into the Texas Panhandle, back into the Oklahoma City area, back in here into western Oklahoma, as we have a dry, active dry line in the heat of the afternoon. These are diurnal daytime heating showers and thunderstorms, and this is about 6 o'clock later on today, and this is more or less as we heat up the atmosphere and kind of just bubbles up the these opportunities with the lift mechanism that's coming off the southwest flow. So we should see the radar start to light up in this area, especially along the dry line up here into the Texas Panhandle, down here in portions of Oklahoma, and these will be diving southeast, and these will be moving swiftly towards the east as we get deeper into the early evening time frame. At the same time, we've got that low pressure center that's stalled along the coast of the southeast, bringing some heavier rain. And then we have a band of showers again right along that cold front that's going to be swinging through Wisconsin. These aren't going to be severe, but still some strong thunderstorms with some gusty winds. So let's take a look at the tornado aspect of it, because don't take your guard down. Even though this is a 2% probability, sometimes during this time of year, these can surprise you. So if you live up in the Texas Panhandle, western Oklahoma, just be on high alert. The time frame to be on high alert is around 4 to 10 o'clock. So definitely keep an eye to the sky, and because this atmosphere is going to be rotating. But even though it's a 2% probability, there's definitely could be a tornado to the two that could pop up in that atmosphere later on today. So, but headed into tomorrow, we've got a little bit more instability to work with. So we've got the driving force from the south flow. We got the southwest winds that's pulling in the heat, pulling in the convective available potential energy, raising that up to 2,000 to 3,000. So that's going to be enough energy. The dew points are back into the upper 60s, low 70s range. So as the cold front comes, the dry line gets a little bit more active. That's going to set the stage for more widespread showers and thunderstorms, and those are going to be severe and then have some damaging winds. In fact, the Storm Prediction Center does in fact have that slight risk in place essentially for all of southern portions of Oklahoma, pretty much all of Arkansas, into North Texas, East Texas, down into Central Texas, as that squall line will be racing across again like 10 o'clock in the evening time frame, traveling from the north to the south. And these are going to be damaging wind threat, some small, even some pockets of large hail with them. And then again, an isolated tornado or two can't be ruled out with this particular system. I don't see this being upgraded to an enhanced risk. but this is going to be more onto the marginal induced, stronger storms, and some, embedded pockets of severe storms are going to be linked as these come through and during that 4 to say 10 o'clock time frame. So here's what the radar could potentially look like as we get into 6 o'clock on Friday. So we're going to have that squall line just to the south of where that cold front's going to be. We've got the instability. So you see these little isolated cells are going to be popping up, and these are going to be traveling southbound. So this is a little bit more progressive cold front, meaning it is going to be traveling faster. I don't really see flooding a big issue with this particular front, but you are going to have some gustier winds and some small to maybe some larger hail associated with these as these continue to move through southbound and through that 4 to 10 o'clock time frame. So as we go into Saturday morning, there's the cold front lying all the way down in towards the Houston area, and back behind it there's got high pressure, so it's high and dry back behind it. So once that cold front clears your area, it's going to be nice, and it's a pretty good cold front for this time of year, and you're going to feel it, and it's going to be drier and less humid air back behind it. So it's definitely going to be feeling really nice. You can see there's colder air because it's going to be snowing in the higher elevations of Colorado still, so it's definitely got some cold air with it. And there's where the instability. So you're pretty much dry all week in the Northeast, not until the daytime on Saturday time frame, out ahead of this cold front. And this is going to be bringing scattered showers and thunderstorms up here into the Northeast as we get during the day on Saturday. And so this is your rain during the, for Saturday all the way through Sunday morning. So this is where the rain could lie during that 24-hour time span. So you've got that, again, south of the cold front, going to be draped across the deep south, Rio Grande Valley regions, and then out here into the southeast, and then draped across the mid-Atlantic and heading towards the I-95 area. And some of these could be heavier activity, especially as you get further into the coast, maybe Rhode Island, back here into the Cape Cod region. Those could be picking up some maybe 1 to 2 inch totals during that daytime hours on Saturday through Sunday morning. But as we transition to Sunday, it just even clears further. So the cold front continues to move off and shift off to the southeast and to the east. And so for a lot of areas, they're fairly high and dry. There's not much unsettled weather back behind that cold front, just nicer weather and nicer conditions. The setup would be, out in far west Texas. These are areas that obviously desperately need their rain. The Texas Panhandle, western Oklahoma. They've been missing out on so many of these, and this is where they're in a desperate drought. So anytime you see this activity up here, that's going to be slowly just kind of eating away the drought. And I think there's a lot more on the table. So but look at the impressive cool down that's going to be coming back behind that cold front. So for several days, we're going to be experiencing those cooler, drier, less humid air, and then below average air for this time of year. At the same time, we've got that ridge still built up into the Pacific Northwest, but that's going to be slowly shifting to the east as we move forward and deeper into next week. And that's where things get a little bit more interesting. So here's the setup for Monday. So here's where the cold front's going to be moving offshore off the east coast. At the same time, we've got that ridge slowly migrating from west and through the north central regions. At the same time, we've got a little bit of a colder air pocket aloft in the upper levels. That's going to be swinging through. That's going to provide more lift. And then we have another low pressure down here off the coast of California. That's going to be moving eastbound as well and creating more lift through some higher elevation lift, and that could be setting the stage in the middle of the country for more numerous rounds of thunderstorms. But as we get into your Thursday, maybe Friday timeframe of next week, as that ridge slowly continues to move across from the west to the east and starts to build, really starts to amplify over the top over Canada, then we have that low pressure with that cold front that just stayed there. And then you always have to be concerned. We're heading into hurricane season, right? Officially starts June 1st. And this is your pressure patterns on the 500 millibar insinuating, hey, we've got lowering of pressures down here into the open waters of the Atlantic, down here towards Florida, maybe off the southeast coast, maybe into the Gulf of Mexico. But this whole area has much lower pressures by the time we get into your Thursday, Friday timeframe of next week. And there's the GFS pulls that 500 millibar just a little bit further off into into the more the Gulf of Mexico. So there are discrepancies this far out in the exact placement of where this 500 millibar would take place. But this gives you the general idea right now that we're going to be having lowering of pressures, especially with this prime type setup with that ridge building over the top. This is typically what you look for if you're looking for some sort of tropical type entity trying to form out there in the open waters. And the longer it just sits there, the greater the probability of something forming. So if we look at some of the model aspects, some of the newest runs, in fact, next Thursday on the GFS, it's got a low pressure, about 1,006 millibar, bringing some heavier rains. I mean, obviously Florida definitely needs the rain. There's some areas that are in a desperate drought for that region. So this is actually a good sign. But if this meanders out in the open waters, this guy could actually try to spin up into some sort of tropical-like entity. So if we take a look and dive in further and look at some of the ensemble guidance and take a look at some of the pressure points as we get into your Friday of next week, then yes, we see lowering of pressures down here into the Gulf of Mexico, 1,001 millibar. So we'll have to watch this whole area. The GFS basically has the same thing, right? Same time frame, different placement, but it kind of gives you the idea there's going to be lowering of pressures from the Carolinas through the southeast coast. So this whole area is going to be susceptible of having lowering of pressures, and the longer that little sit there, it could spin up in some sort of tropical entity, and eventually that would be drifting inland. So yeah, the GFS has maybe 1,003 millibar at this stage, kind of trying to drift in towards the Carolina coast. And then, the European guidance is a lot more bullish on this particular aspect, has even a lower pressure out here into the open waters of the Gulf of Mexico. So we are heading into next weekend for Memorial Weekend. So this is always a time frame that, as we're heading towards tropical type season, with these lower pressures, you look for all this that might try to spin up again. This is kind of a longer range, but there's definitely signs at this stage that there's something maybe trying to form down here. So we'll have to watch this region. So if you got plans essentially from the Florida coast all the way to the Carolina coast for Memorial Weekend, you're going to have to be watching this area. And if anything, it looks like a big time rain producer. So we'll go over that. And let's take a look at the latest probability on the EPS guidance. Like even this far out, this is the first hint. Again, this is we're at the very beginning, early stages of any type of tropical type weather. And the longer range on the 8 to 10 days out has at least a chance, a probability on even on the ensembles at this stage of something maybe trying to form out there into the Gulf of Mexico. So this is something we're going to be fine tuning definitely in the days ahead, especially as we get into next week. But look where the drought is. This is the newest update from the drought monitor. And I don't need to tell you, West Texas, there's the area that desperately needs the rain. Western Oklahoma, back into Kansas, back into portions of Nebraska, and then Florida. Those are the really standouts that need the most significant rain. So it's definitely big to see on these ensembles. And we'll look at all three of these. This is your European ensembles for now until the end of the month. Kind of has that bullseye. So you've got that lift mechanism that's coming in off the west, right? And that sets the stage for these higher based activity that forms off the Rockies and slowly shifts eastward. And this is the highest placement where they are in the most significant drought. So this is definitely a good sign. We've got a potentially a lot of rain coming for the drought prone areas that desperately need the rain. But what also sticks like a sore thumb is these very heavy rains, insinuating that, hey, we've got that tropical type entity trying to develop out there. So we'll watch this activity, but you can see well above average rains basically from the Florida coast all the way to the Carolina coast. So we'll definitely have to watch this. This is the European ensembles and this is the GFS ensemble. So we're definitely starting to see more global model congruent, coming together and saying, hey, this is an area definitely to watch in the days ahead. That was the GFS and this is the Canadian. So all three global models are basically implying the same thing. We have to watch this activity from the Florida coast to the Carolina coast from now until through Memorial Weekend for potentially some, tropical type entity. Whether it forms or not, it's too soon to say if it actually is going to form or not into a tropical system. But whether it does or not, it's definitely going to be a big time rain producer down here. So definitely, if you got plans for a Memorial Weekend, you're gonna have to be watching this carefully as we transition into next week. So guys, I appreciate you guys watching. I do like this video. Definitely hit the subscribe button. Also follow me on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. I do daily updates on those platforms as well. And catch me next update where I protect you before and after the storm.